Hello folks, this is the infamous Mr. King, and today we're going to be talking about cryptocurrency. More specifically, we're going to be talking about cryptocurrency and the King Cuck himself, Thought Slime. A month or so back, he did a video on why he doesn't like cryptocurrency, and I, as a big supporter of cryptocurrency, am going to look at his arguments and see what points he has to make. Now, with introductions out of the way, let's start the video.
Money for sale. Money for sale. Step right up, folks, one at a time. There's plenty to go around, because I just literally make it up on a computer.
Wow, barely 10 seconds in and already he's calling it snake oil. Ain't this just a great start?
Bonafide, genuine money, yours for the purchase. Buy now, because who knows how much it'll cost in the future? Nobody. Because this is nonsense that somehow makes people into millionaires, featuring all of your favorite memes from 2011.
Who says old school memes ain't funny? I mean, Trollface made a comeback, didn't it? And besides, comedy is a great means of spreading information. There's tons of people who would never have gotten into cryptocurrency if it weren't for Doge. And now they have been introduced to it, they can buy better coins like Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Monero.
We've got fungible tokens. We've got non-fungible tokens. No risk. It's all secured by patented blockchain technology. Regular money is made up. All of it is. Money isn't anything. It's just a number we attach to how much stuff you could get if you wanted it.
That may be true in modern day, but it wasn't always so. Back in the day, people either minted their money in gold or had their money backed by gold. And because nearly every human civilization has found gold valuable, nearly every human civilization has found money backed or minted in gold valuable. To better explain, here's an excerpt from an animation called The Collapse of the American Dream.
In the long, long ago, people bartered. They traded things they had for things they wanted. I'll trade you my raspberries for that there pot pie.
I don't want your berries.
Come on. Wow, they're sweet berries.
They're not sweet. They're old, and I don't like berries.
Give me that pot pie!
No.
As you can see, this bartering situation created some problems. Then one day, a goldsmith walked up and said,
Now, everybody thinks gold is valuable, so why doesn't everybody trade gold for things they need?
a price was set for gold, and now it was very easy to conduct commerce because people could trade gold for all the things they needed.
Hartman! Wow, look at all my gold! Hey, stop them! That's my gold!
Damn thieves!
Say there, Pyle. I've got a vault and some guards. I can keep your gold safe for you for a small fee. Yeah, sure, that'd be awesome.
You see, Pyle, this is how the first bank made money.
There you go, Pyle. I owe you 100 gold coins. Okay, great. Come back anytime and redeem your gold when you want it. It'll be right here in my vault.
Now you're holding the very first paper money, Pyle.
Wow, this is great. It all makes sense.
Oh, that's right. It was good, and everybody started using IOUs because everybody knew the IOU was as good as gold.
Wow, this candy is really a good price. 1 IOU. I'm getting some more for later. Hey, wait a minute. It was just 1 IOU. 10 IOUs for chocolate? You can't just raise prices like that.
Oh, the Candyman can.
Oh, the Candyman can. Wait, that is just frickin' wrong.
It's called inflation, Pyle. It makes your IOUs worth less and less until they are worth nothing. Less bang for the buck. Dollar ain't what it used to be.
But I worked hard and I baked all those pot pies. Now I have to work harder to make less? That's not fair.
Oh, if you think that's not fair, you're gonna love the next part.
What's he doing?
How do banks make money, Pyle?
By making more loans?
Oh, that's right. He's good. See, he prints more IOUs without any more gold, loans them out for interest, makes a pretty penny, and nobody is the wiser. Unless everybody wanted their gold back at the same time.
No. That's my gold.
Not anymore.
What are you talking about?
I'd like to redeem my IOUs, please. Thank you very much.
Hey! I want my gold back now! Thief!
Gotta love the bank run, bringing people together. See, they all found out he was stealing, made a run on the bank, and demanded their gold, but as you can see, There ain't no gold to get. Herdman! Don't worry, pal. Back in these times, vengeance will be yours. 3 things in this world you don't do. Never mess with another man's woman. Never mess with another man's ego. And most importantly, you never mess with another man's money. Else, a man will mess with you.
And that's been the cycle for most of history. People barter until they decide that something that they barter for is more valuable than other things and base their economy around it. Banks agree to protect that precious thing from thieves in exchange for a small fee, and gives out IOUs so the precious thing can be redeemed at a later date. They then print more IOUs so they can give out loans for money that they don't have. People decide that they want their precious things back, but then realize that there are more IOUs than there are of the precious thing. The people get rightfully pissed and kill the banker. The government would then monopolize the money supply under the pretense that it wouldn't do what the bank did, only to then do almost exactly what the bank did. These days, most currencies are what we call fiat currencies, meaning that they are backed by nothing and are only valuable because the governments that mint them force you to pay their taxes with them.
I live in a country where we literally call our dollar coins loonies because they have a loon on them. And because of that, when the $2 coin came out, people just called those toonies, and that was funny for like 10 minutes. But everybody thought, oh, well, we'll think of something better eventually, but we never did. They're still toonies. How whimsical. You need enough of the loon circles to pay for food, or you will die.
Yeah, and back in the day, if you lacked the skills to hunt, fish, gather, or build shelter, then you would also die. And personally, I think it's great that we do have the loon circles, so that way people who don't have those skills can trade to the people who do.
Money is a bad idea, and it's caused all of our problems. It is an arbitrary measure of who gets to live and who gets to live well, and who sleeps under the awning of a building owned by a corporation worth trillions of loon circles. In order to have it, you have to convince somebody else that has some of it to give it to you. And if you don't have it, you will die.
Yes, I suppose that is rather sad, but Squidward can kill himself during his break.
I wouldn't say money causes all the world's problems. I'd say it solves a lot of the world's problems. For example, social mobility. For a good portion of human history, you were just born into a caste and you'd stay there until the day you die. The rich stayed rich and the poor stayed poor. But now, thanks to a combination of money and free market capitalism, we now have the ability to move between rich and poor. Hell, nearly every American millionaire, going all the way back to the robber barons, has been self-made. And statistically speaking, 70% of all wealthy families lose said wealth by the second generation. People's skill with money gives them both the ability to rise and fall in society. Sure, there's always going to be wealth inequality, but does it really matter as long as the money is made ethically?
So that kind of gives the power of life and death to the people with the most money, which is 8 people. 8 people have half of money. And shouldn't that, shouldn't that not be true? Like, if we're going to organize our entire civilization around the pursuit of this one thing, and without it people will just starve or lead shitty lives at least, doesn't it feel like 8 people having half of it is a mistake? Doesn't that feel like a problem?
Like I said a second ago, it's only a problem if those people got their money unethically. However, if you want to see that number grow, then lower taxes and cut some of the red tape around starting a business, and I assure you, you will see that number grow.
But it's also inevitable, isn't it? I mean, money gives you power, and with that power, you can make more money until eventually it concentrates more and more into the hands of a few people who have all of the money and power. And maybe that sounds pessimistic or cynical to you, but may I remind you, it's already happened. That's what happened. That's the world we live in. I'm not talking about a hypothetical. It already happened.
Now, you may be wondering, how exactly do 8 people get their hands on half of the world's money? Well, there is a simple answer. Protectionism. At some point, the government decided that some businesses are too big to fail, meaning that if said company goes under, then the whole industry goes under. Now, this is complete bullshit, but the government will tell you otherwise, and have made it their mission to make sure these companies do not fail by giving them bailouts and subsidies. You heard that right. Giant corporations receive $1 million welfare checks. That's where the unethical part comes in. And because of that, they can make as many mistakes as they want and be as shitty as they want because their income is guaranteed. And that's not even the biggest way that the government fucks with our money supply. The biggest way the government fucks with our money supply is through inflation. You see, the government is perpetually over budget when it comes to spending. And when the government doesn't have enough money to pay for all the things it promised, it simply prints more.
Can you characterize everything that the Fed has done this past week as essentially flooding the system with money?
Yes, exactly.
And there's no end to your ability to do that.
There is no end to our ability to do that.
The problem of this being that as the dollar supply increases, its value decreases, meaning that the purchasing power of our savings and wages is lessening by the day. That is the problem with fiat currency. Eventually, you print so much of it that it becomes worthless, a phenomenon known as hyperinflation.
$60,000 for a roll of toilet paper? Back in my day, toilet paper was $30,000.
That's the truth. Like, if you were an alien and you took a quick peek at the world right now, you'd clock immediately that this shit is just not working. People are struggling to find meaningful work, while also the planet is turbo-fucked by carbon emissions that we could probably figure out if we tried, but it's not profitable for the people that already have more money than they could possibly hope to spend. So instead, what we're gonna do is speed up that turbo-fucking while we still have a little bit of oil to do it with.
Wait, why are we talking about climate change? I thought this video was about money and cryptocurrency. Now, forgive me for being skeptical, but I don't think climate change is going to be as bad as people say. Remember, in the 60s, overpopulation was going to cause famine. In the 70s, global cooling was going to cause an ice age by 2070. And in the 80s, acid rain was going to burn our skin off. This is just the one that caught on. And if you truly are so concerned about climate change, why not support nuclear? It produces more energy than oil, doesn't produce carbon emissions, and the waste can actually be disposed of properly. Not only that, but you can also take the waste and run it back through the plant to get more power. As long as you make sure nothing blows up, you're hunky-dory.
Want to be a doctor? Great. We need more doctors. There's a huge shortage. So here's what you can do. Go into crippling, irreversible debt forever, work well beyond the capacity of any regular human being, and then just kind of hope your life stays stable, because if you get sick or hit by a bus, you won't be able to work anymore, but you're still on the hook for that money.
Once again, this is a problem created by government fucking with the money. In the 60s, the government began guaranteeing student loans. The way they accomplished this was by telling the banks that if the students were unable to pay off their debts, that the government would pay it for them. The colleges and banks, realizing that there was no way they could lose, began jacking up tuition to squeeze the system for all it was worth, creating the massive student loan debts we have today.
Oh, you want to be a musician? What useless layaboutery! Why don't you get a real job, like filling in spreadsheets that no one reads? If you want to be creative, you can do that. Just get a job in a creative field, like being the guy that makes tweets from the Cornflakes Twitter account. And then you could do something productive, like managing a one-day takeover where Jake Paul is going to tweet his hashtag cornflake memories. Musician. Name one song that's ever made anybody's life better. We have enough musicians. Music is done. We've got all of the songs.
You know, it's not impossible to make a living as a musician in a capitalist society. Sure, not everybody's gonna be famous, but there's always gonna be demand for bar bands. And besides, thanks to sites like Bandcamp and SoundCloud, plus the availability of mixing software and recording equipment, it's now easier to become a musician than ever before.
Oops, there's a pandemic. I guess everybody still has to go shopping, and a few million of the poor will die. What are you gonna do? Not make money for a couple of months? No, we're all in this together. Your job is to suffer and die, and mine is to make billions, because we all have our cross to bear.
Can't argue with that. The lockdowns have been nothing but a mistake from the beginning. They have done nothing but drive people into poverty and cause misery. All because of a virus with a 0.02 mortality rate.
And when I talk like this, sometimes people are like, well, what do you propose as an alternative?
Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals number 12. The price of a successful attack is a constructive alternative.
Money might not be perfect, but it's the only thing that works. But obviously it doesn't, right? Like, I don't want to put too fine a point on this, but the planet is dying. And it's difficult for me to imagine a worse result than that. Like, day to day, your life might be stable if you live in one of the lucky places. Mine is. But long term, and I really can't stress this hard enough, our species is doomed.
How am I destroying the planet by using money? Because I use the money to buy gas? If you want to stop climate change, go nuclear. Not only save the planet, but also give human beings a better ability to grow and innovate.
But even if everything were normal, even if everything were going according to plan, it still makes everyone miserable at the best of times. Everybody wakes up, trades at least half of their waking life to someone else in exchange for money under threat of starvation and poverty. It doesn't matter if you could have been the world's best painter, because you gotta spend your time throwing boxes into a truck until your back gives out.
Who says the guy putting boxes in the truck can't paint in his spare time? And even then, working for one's own survival is not something you can really escape. As a wise man once said, capitalism did not invent poverty, it merely inherited it. And personally, I would rather spend my days loading boxes into a truck than wandering the woods with an empty stomach hoping to find something smaller than me to eat, with no guarantee that I would.
And sure, we miss out on your cool paintings, but don't worry, because the boxes got in the truck a little bit faster. So if we need one-day shipping to get people a Nerf gun faster, we can get it. And for the record, the only reason I'm using Nerf guns as the example here is because I thought maybe I could use that as an excuse to buy a Nerf gun, and my wife couldn't be annoyed that I bought an unwieldy, useless object taking up space in our tiny apartment because it's for work. Anyway, I'm a child, it's not relevant. We're moving on. After a certain point, is the pursuit of this imaginary number really wise to base our entire lives and society around?
What the hell are you talking about? People's lives don't revolve entirely around money. They engage in hobbies, they go to church, they play with their kids. People's lives don't revolve entirely around earning money. Here in the developed world, we have leisure time. And the undeveloped world could have it too if it were to embrace free market capitalism and actually start developing. Before it was Zimbabwe, Rhodesia was one of the fastest developing states in all of Africa. I won't call Rhodesia perfect. It was an apartheid state after all. But what I will say is that if Rhodesia had abandoned its racist policies rather than fall to Marx-Leninism under Robert Mugabe, it could have become one of the wealthiest nations in the world. Same goes for the rest of Africa as well. The whole place is a damn goldmine of natural resources. People of Africa could be living insanely well, but the whole place is rife with violence, corruption, and socialism. Remember, money enables trade. Trade enables development. Development enables freedom. The more you restrict trade, the more you restrict development, the more you restrict freedom. That is why I support the use of money.
People look at me like I have two heads when I suggest that maybe the made-up numbers shouldn't get to decide whether or not we die of exposure on the streets. Maybe we did a little bit of a whoopsie-doodle there.
Well, I don't know about all that, but 40% of all US dollars were printed in the year 2020 alone, so we probably should get off this boat before it sinks.
Maybe the countries we decided to fuck up on purpose for centuries shouldn't owe us, the richest countries, huge sums of imaginary getting to live paper.
If only there were a means of exchange that couldn't be inflated, that isn't under the oppressive rule of the IFM and World Bank, that couldn't be manipulated by government. Oh wait, that exists. It's called cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is a form of digital money stored on a decentralized network of computers called a blockchain. Blockchains are currently impossible to hack because, unlike with normal hacking where you just have to hack one computer, you now have to hack several thousand computers all at the same time. Well, you may be asking yourself, well, what makes it better than the US dollar? Simple. Most cryptocurrencies have caps.
It sucks that I missed out on Bitcoin.
You didn't miss anything. You'll be crying again when people are trading Bitcoin for twice the current value.
Bitcoin isn't backed by anything either.
It's backed by proof-of-stake money. Bitcoin is valuable because it has a fixed supply. It it cannot be inflated.
For example, there can only exist 21 million bitcoins and the Monero blockchain can only contain 18 million XMR, meaning they cannot be inflated into oblivion. Now, there are of course exceptions to this. Currencies like Ethereum and Dogecoin actually lack caps, although most of them still do have anti-inflation protection. For example, Ethereum makes the mining process more and more difficult every couple years to curb inflation. That is the main draw of cryptocurrencies: decentralized forms of money that cannot be controlled or inflated by any form of government. Now let's see what ThoughtSlime has to say.
That's the normal amount of fucked up. That's how things usually are. But what if we could make money even more pointless and destructive?
Oh boy, here we go.
What if we make a type of money that, instead of simply incentivizing people to wreck the environment, also directly wrecked the environment itself? What if the money wasn't accepted most places, and also could at any moment suddenly drop in value based on literally nothing? What if this money were managed by just whoever wanted to, and without any care put into security so that any random hacker could crash the economy because for some reason we kept most of the money on a Magic the Gathering website? Enter cryptocurrency, a new kind of fake money made from extremely complex math puzzles for computers.
He goes more in depth with the environmental stuff later in the video, so I'll talk about it in a sec. But I want to clear some things up first. 1. Cryptocurrency prices do not go up and down for no reason. They go up and down with supply and demand. For example, the reason for the recent crypto market crash was because the Central Bank of China said didn't recognize cryptocurrency as real money, and because Elon Musk said you wouldn't be able to pay for a Tesla with Bitcoin, despite promoting it a crap ton over the past couple months. Because of this, everyone who was inexperienced and simply bought because Musk said so dumped their coins, and all the experienced crypto veterans began buying the dip. And 2, yes, the developers of Mt. Gox were incompetent, but crypto exchange security has come a long way since then. Hell, sometimes people actually lose access to their currencies because they forgot their passwords. It is very secure.
To emulate mining precious stones, a computer expends enormous processing power to create new units of currency, the records of which are kept on an enormous decentralized ledger called the blockchain. And just like mining for precious stones, the process is incredibly destructive to the environment, requiring unfathomable energy consumption and devouring expensive computer parts, which inevitably end up in a landfill.
Not necessarily. Most computer parts are actually highly recyclable, and there are plenty of people willing to pay good money to get the rare earth metals in your used up computer parts.
Unlike mining for precious stones, you don't get a stone, you get a number on a computer, which you could have gotten for free. Here's one. 5. Bitcoin, the most popular form of cryptocurrency, was found to be responsible for about 1% of all energy used in North Dakota in 2018, according to a study commissioned by the U.S. Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources. Sorry. I don't know why I said North Dakota just now. I meant Earth, 1% of all the energy used on Earth.
Okay, this is a blatant lie. In total, the world consumes about 173,000 terawatt hours annually. Of that 173,000, only 120, or 0.07%, is consumed by Bitcoin, an insignificant amount in the grand scheme of things. And besides, with massive power usage comes massive power bills. There's a reason why you barely see basement Bitcoin mining rigs anymore. The closer Bitcoin gets to 21 million, the more difficult it becomes to mine, increasing the energy uses but also increasing the power bills of those who mine for it. Eventually, it got to a point where people were losing more money on their power bills than they were making mining Bitcoin. That's why these days, most Bitcoin mining is done by massive crypto farms, almost half of which are solar powered because it became cheaper to buy the panels than pay the power bill. Statistically speaking, 40% of all Bitcoin mining is done with renewable energy, which is much greater than the standard 10%. Besides, energy usage is something that a lot of crypto developers have been working to reduce for a very long time. For example, the Ethereum 2.0 update promises to bring with it a 95.5% power usage reduction. And yes, Bitcoin is a bit of an energy hog. But within cryptocurrency's 12 years of existence, people have taken what Bitcoin started and built upon it to be more and more efficient. That is another benefit of crypto over fiat. It can be improved upon and updated over time.
This planet, the one we live on, where we use all of our energy. Every 10 minutes, a new Bitcoin is issued, regardless of the collective power of the computers mining for it. That means that as more and more computers start mining for Bitcoins, the complexity of the math problem used, and thus the processing power required, and thus the energy consumption required to make one,
and thus the power bill that the miners have to pay,
grows.
This is called proof of work, and it's the means by which most cryptocurrencies use for mining. However, it's not the only means by which coins can be mined. For example, the Cardano blockchain and its cryptocurrency, ADA, uses what is called proof of stake, meaning that rather than relying purely on the amount of work your computer did to determine who receives the coin, the decision also depends on how much ADA you already have. And this has proven to greatly reduce the cost of crypto mining.
Using this technology, you can give yourself an inflated sense of security when buying illegal drugs on the internet, and that is their only legitimate function.
Oh, come on, there's tons of things you buy of cryptocurrency. Guns, fake IDs, 3D printers, sex of prostitutes.
They're also good for speculating on if you're a vampire. Like, you buy some of this fake money, wait until more people buy more of the fake money, then sell the fake money for real money. And then this happens over and over, driving up demand for the fake money, which in turn means that the money becomes more and more environmentally destructive. Makes sense to me!
And as soon as I saw Litecoin going back up, I immediately bought some of it. Same story for VeChain.
Are you also in VeChain?
Yes, and you?
Of course I am. VeChain to the moon.
Come sit with us, brother. Join the gang.
And I get a lot of people telling me, hey dude, I don't see the problem with this. It's all decentralized. Don't you think that's better than the government having control over the money? Don't you think? Aren't you a big old anarchist wanting to decentralize things?
That actually brings up another great use of cryptocurrency, counter-economics. You know that old joke about how if we all stopped paying taxes at the exact same time, the government couldn't afford to send people to our house and arrest us for not paying taxes? Well, that is literally the practice for agorism.
Refeed me. I cannot survive without your tax dollars.
I crave more crime and censorship. Feed me blood.
We need to get rid of California before this gets any worse.
For those who don't know, agorism is essentially anarcho-capitalism's better refined brother. An anarcho-capitalist will tell you not to vote because it's pointless. An agorist will tell you not to vote because it's participating in state violence. An anarcho-capitalist will tell you that the state sucks nuts. An agorist will tell you that the state sucks nuts and how to bring it down. Agorists believe by doing everything in our power to stop ourselves from relying upon and supporting the state, we could eventually starve it to death. This is known as counter-economics. And it mainly consists of stuff like growing your own food, buying solar panels, and tax evasion. Within counter-economics, there are 4 kinds of markets: green markets, gray markets, black markets, and red markets. A green market is any form of market that is regulated and taxed, such as retail stores. Gray markets are markets that aren't regulated or taxed but also aren't illegal, such as farmers markets or flea markets. Black markets are markets that are illegal but aren't immoral, stuff like drug dealing or prostitution. A red market is any market that is considered immoral to participate in, such as the slave trade or contract assassination. Agorists believe we should participate in gray and black markets as much as possible while trying to avoid green markets when we can and red markets altogether. And cryptocurrency happens to be really great for gray and black markets, mainly because it undermines monetary sovereignty. Monetary sovereignty is a nation's ability to control monetary policy, such as minting currency and raising and lowering interest rates. Due to crypto's decentralized nature, the government can do neither of these things, meaning it cannot screw us over with bad monetary policy.
And this is my fault because I haven't been clear about this in the past, but let me just lay it out. I do think that we should do worthwhile things in a decentralized way, but things that are destructive and pointless should not be done at all.
So you're telling me that a centralized currency that undermines monetary sovereignty and is immune to inflation, you know, that thing that makes our savings and wages worth 1% less every year, is pointless and destructive? I get it, you're an ANCOM. You believe the future is classless, stateless, and moneyless. But even you have to admit, a currency that is immune to inflation is better for the working class than a fiat currency that can be devalued into nothing, even if it's a gas guzzler.
If we created a computer system where instead of having wars, the computer just arbitrarily picked who got shot, and also in order for the machine to run, it required us to constantly feed it blood, I would say, hey, murder computer seems like kind of a problem. Maybe we should turn off the murder computer. And then people would say to me, oh, okay, just let the state decide who gets shot?
Alrighty then, let's crack open a history book and see what happens when monetary sovereignty goes wrong. During World War I, the Prussian Empire abandoned its gold standard so it could print as much money as it wanted and buy as many guns as it wanted, under the presumption that when it won the war, it could simply loot Great Britain and its allies to pay off its debts. The Prussian Empire then lost World War I, became the Weimar Republic, and was forced to pay a massive debt by the Allied powers. Now, here's the thing. The Allied powers refused to allow the Weimar Republic to pay off its debts with German marks. They had to do it with their currencies. So, the Weimar Republic had to use German marks to buy foreign currencies with which to pay off its debt. The Weimar Republic figured that the best way to do this was to simply print crap loads of marks and use them to buy the currencies. The people selling the currencies caught on to the increased supply and raised prices to match demand. The Republic then started printing more to match the original spending, and by the end of it, you needed a literal wheelbarrow's worth of cash to buy a loaf of bread. This led to an economic crisis that was then blamed on Jewish bankers by the National Socialist Party of Germany. So yeah, that's what happens when you let government control the money. Best case scenario, people start using the currency to make decorative papercraft to sell for currencies that are actually worth something. Worst case scenario, you get Nazis. So yeah, if I have to pick between monetary sovereignty and a coin dispenser that's powered by gas and requires more gas the more you use it, I'm picking the coin dispensary every time.
I like computers. I like computer programming and gadgets and gizmos. I appreciate the appeal of using computers to disrupt the way we use money. I get why that feels like a fun science fiction way of doing things. Like you feel like you're a neuromancer, which shouldn't be a good thing, but for some reason seems to be for a lot of people. But what's the problem solved here? What do we get for this enormous waste of resources that seemingly exists just to speculate on?
Like I said before, you get a hedge against inflation that undermines monetary sovereignty.
The answer people give to me a lot of the time is, oh, it's money that's untraceable. You could use it to do crimes. Okay. Cash is also untraceable. Seems like we had a handle on that, actually.
No, cash is super traceable. You ever wonder why in every heist movie ever, the bank robbers always say, "Give me unmarked bills"?
At least, though, that's as bad as it gets, right? At least the process can't get any dumber than people speculating on fake numbers created by earth-burning machines, right? Well, imagine, instead of getting the number that actually let you buy things on the internet, that you could actually trade with other people as a medium of exchange, how about instead of that, the other thing it could do is redirect to a certificate that lets you pretend to own something on the internet. Not like you couldn't do anything, you don't get the thing that's on the internet. You're buying the idea of it. Like you can't edit it, you can't take it down, you don't get to host it, you don't get the exclusive right to reproduce it, you can't do anything. It's just a little note on the blockchain that says that thing belongs to you. That's what NFTs are. That's all they are. That's it.
Now, I don't know that much about NFTs, but from my understanding of things, they're essentially just another way for the rich to avoid taxes and launder money. You know, kind of like fine art. And I've got no problem with money laundering or tax evasion as long as you didn't get the money you're laundering through murder, theft, or coercion.
And that might sound like I'm exaggerating, because you've probably heard news stories about people making millions of dollars selling NFTs. And see what they're spending that millions of dollars on is what it is it's like dibs. It's internet dibs.
And if they want to pay out millions of dollars to claim internet dibs, then that's their right. I don't care.
Like someone paid millions of dollars for the first tweet. What does that mean? He owns it. Twitter still has it. They can delete it. They could get rid of it if they wanted. But some guy owns it. It says so on the blockchain. And nobody can change that it says that on the blockchain. It's the same blockchain that cryptocurrency guys use. Not the same technology, mind you. Sometimes it's literally the same blockchain, like many NFTs are stored on the Ethereum blockchain, for example. So all of the environmental impact of Ethereum is used to power it.
The same environmental impact is to be reduced by 95.5% with the Ethereum 2.0 update.
And of course, this is different than a contract, a thing that already existed and cost nothing to manufacture but the paper it was printed on, because computers. I'm kidding, of course. The real reason it's different is because it's nothing and it won't hold up or prove anything in court. It's a note that you've paid somebody to write down in an endless chain of notes powered by ridiculous energy waste. $69 million to write down that you own a JPEG. That's the world now. That's how people make money. The absolute state of capitalism. Just really let it wash over you. Millionaires exacerbating the worst crisis the planet has ever faced so that they can pretend to own the NCAT. That is what money experts are doing right now. Now look, do I think I know the best way to organize things without money? No. I have some thoughts. We could take inventory of what we need and submit it to the places where that's manufactured, and it could be produced that way.
That could work if you had clairvoyance. The problem with planned economies is that when something goes wrong, you have to rework the entire plan for this unforeseen event. The Soviet Union had insanely detailed plans on how to supply things for its people. However, because the Soviet Union could not predict how the people's needs would change in a matter of years or even months, it regularly experienced shortages. Market economies tend to avoid this problem because every business has its own plan, so somebody's bound to get it right. It also helps that these plans tend to be highly flexible. All companies need to do is look at how people are spending their money to determine demand and then adjust their plans accordingly. Planned economies tend to lack this flexibility because if you're working by the Soviet model, then you have to replan the entire economy for the next 5 years, and that can't be done on the fly.
I'm sure that would lead to all sorts of unforeseen consequences that I, a non-economist who will not log off, cannot predict. I'm sure there's all sorts of complications just like there are for money. Shit is complicated. But right now, this shit is cuckoo banana brains. We're living in an absurd Lewis Carroll economy, and in pursuit of imaginary money with Doge, a meme nobody even likes anymore, printed on it, we're running headfirst into human extinction on purpose. I struggle to make a comedic exaggeration because I can't imagine a more asinine situation. Our species was not meant to die off in the pursuit of Robux. We were meant to grow, touch the stars, expand and adapt until our largesse were grand enough to satiate the hunger of that which waits in the void.
And that was Thought Slime on money and cryptocurrency. And in response, there are two main things I want to say. One, no, crypto is not destroying the planet. And two, if you want to save the planet, then support your local nuke plant. Cryptocurrency is one of the greatest counter-economic forces ever devised by man, and I wholeheartedly encourage you to go buy one of your choice. You're not going to set the world on fire, and when the USD fails, you'll be the guy walking into HEB with nothing but a phone in his hand, rather than a wheelbarrow full of dollar bills. I'm the Infamous Mr. King, and I'll see you next time, folks.